On Energy Timelines, we bring you authoritative gist.
PIB, great idea. Delay 20 years. You don't move by delaying things.
The fundamental thing that happened was that we took a decision to stop doing the wrong thing and do the right thing.
Now, Marginal Field in the middle of a pandemic where they still delay because this was supposed to have been done 8 years earlier.
Several burning issues on the front burner, as they say in Nigeria. Are you on the front burner or you are behind the burner? This is Nigeria. This is our country. We have no other place to call home. You are always welcome here. Hello and welcome to Energy Timelines. On this program, we'll bring you authoritative insights into the energy sector. We also bring you stakeholders' perspectives on topical issues across the globe, specifically as it concerns energy, which comprises the oil and gas, power, the extractive, and the maritime industries. Energy Timelines is a weekly magazine program brought to you on Energy Day television. My name is Vivian Okeya. When it comes to electricity, the vocabulary of the average Nigerian continues to grow to include words like collapse of the national grid. This has become common parlance because of repeated occurrences. On a daily basis, power outages occur more times than we have fingers. The National Mass Metering Program, closing the metering gap, to Nigerians are mere words. Plenty of talk and little action, as more than half of electricity consumers in Nigeria remain unmetered and continue to bear the burden of estimated billing. Perhaps the most accurate synonym for electricity in Nigeria is despondent. Is there any hope? Is there any silver lining in the horizon? Joining me to look at these and other issues is a very special guest. And I will give you today just an abridged version of who he is, just a small version. My guest today is a renowned lawyer with over 4 decades of active practice. His practice areas cut across several commercial transactions, including aviation, building, banking and finance, arbitration, legislative drafting and competition law, and policy, as well as telecommunications law. He now concentrates on energy and natural resources law. He was part of the team that birthed the first mobile phone service in Nigeria. Over the years, my guest has worked with several local and international oil companies, as well as concession of successor companies in the Nigeria power privatization process. He serves as director and chairman on a variety of boards, both here in Nigeria and internationally, including the Nigeria Bar Association and a co-electricity distribution company. He is a member of the Body of Benchers, the highest regulatory body in Nigeria's legal profession. You wonder who my big masquerade is. No one else but Mr. George Etomi. You're welcome to the program, sir.
My pleasure.
Good to have you here.
I didn't recognize myself after you read that CV.
It took me a long time to put that together. You have done so much. I thought I was going to meet a man with plenty of gray hair.
Thank you.
Welcome once again, sir.
My pleasure.
So let's go straight. The unbundling of and privatization of the power sector in Nigeria was actually meant and designed to improve management and efficiency. But today, the general consensus is that the bane of effective power supply in Nigeria is the flawed design and legal framework that guided the process, which also the Senate President attested to when he said that the process has failed. As a major stakeholder in this sector, where do you stand on this?
Well, like you said when you were reading my CV, I've actually been involved in some of the groundbreaking privatization programs that have taken place from the banking sector to telecoms aviation, and now power. Now, if you look at where we were coming from in the banking sector, I'm sure you all, I don't know, many of you are too young to remember the tally number days. You needed to go and get a tally, go and wait to collect your own money, not a loan, not somebody else's money, and all that. And it was a picnic. You went very early in the morning, you went to do stuff, and then you come back, they call your number. It's like a lottery. When they say the bank has closed, those who didn't get to cry. Can you for a second imagine what banking has done to? Some of the Nigerian banks are some of the most sophisticated you can find anywhere in the world. Let me take you on a journey through telecoms as well. You remember in those days, the fact that you had a phone box didn't mean you had a line. It was only an intention to get a line. And there was about 700,000 installed lines, out of which only 400,000 were functional for a population like we had. And remember in those days, you take the phone off the hook and you're doing all that stuff, then here, oh, the Darlington had come, you rush to get it. Again, look at what transformation has taken place in the telecoms industry. And if you combine how telcos and banking sector has worked, today you can do online banking, you can do everything that you do. I mean, our GDP between banking and telco, they made us the largest economy in Africa. Now, the point I'm heading to is that the fundamental thing that happened was that we took a decision to stop doing the wrong thing and do the right thing. And in these successful privatizations that I talked about, the will to continue on that path remained, even when there were changes in government. If we could do it for banking, you could do it for telecoms. What about aviation, that you had only one Nigeria Airways? Today you have choices. It's not the very best, but you have choices. It will happen in the power sector. The difference has been that when the privatization took place in 2013, there were a number of things that were agreed to be done. But in its implementation, there was a regime change. And fundamentally, it didn't appear that they were willing to continue with the privatization. So we started getting mixed signals. And anybody who takes investment decisions, they just look at your legal and regulatory environment to see whether it's stable enough for them to commit funds. That 2013 push was just the beginning. By now, we should have been seeing volumes and volumes of cash coming in. What has impeded that process has been what they see as mixed regulatory and legal signs coming in. The money to take us out of the power quagmire is not in Nigeria. These are investment funds that are going around globally looking for the friendliest environments to perch on. And until we make it attractive for them to come, it won't happen. Secondly, you are selling a product that we all know is subsidized. A product costs 50 naira. The regulator says sell it for 30. It does not tell you how 20 will be catered for. And these shortfalls have continued to rise and is sitting on the book of the distribution companies. It's unattractive, it makes them uninvestable, it makes them totally uncompetitive. Then you get to the point of what about other members of the value chain? Gas is a feedstock when you're talking about thermal plants. 70% of our power comes from thermal plants. All these, your Gencos, Geregu, Afam, whatever, they all rely on gas. The gas policy, gas to power policy is not clear. So many people are not investing in gas to power. The guys who own the gas will rather liquefy it and send it away abroad, or they will flare it, as me and you see daily. So gas is supplied to generating companies on a best endeavor basis. It's not contractual. You can't hold them contractually. So from time to time, when you talk about the grid collapse, it is not necessarily TCN's fault. It may be because they don't have gas. And that's because the owners of the gas, like it happened in recent weeks, for some reason they were rehabilitating all the gas facilities at the same time. So there wasn't enough gas to send to fire your generating plant. These are generators. what am I saying? The power should work in harmony with the entire value chain, from gas to generation to transmission to distribution. If any one of them is weak, it affects the entire value chain, because it is the money you receive in the end from customers that should go to service the entire industry. Because that money is not enough, because it is subsidized, the government has to bring that balance. And that's why you keep hearing subsidy. They spent 1.3 trillion. When they say they spent 1.3 trillion, it's not necessarily on the discos. It is to cater for that shortfall so that every member of the value chain gets serviced. Now, the next question would be, if you've privatized a sector, why would you still want to subsidize it? This is the whole argument around the removal of subsidy. And trust me, if the tenets of the privatization, if the sanctity of those documents that were signed were honored from 2013, we would have seen a major change. And that's the difference.
They were honored.
Honored, yes.
By
the government.
Why would you point at
this government? I don't like using the word accusing fingers, because when government says we won't take subsidy away, there are other political considerations. It is just for us to understand where the problem is, because the way I understand it, you guys want to enlighten the public. So this is not a blame game. I'm not trying to do a blame game. We're just trying to throw out facts so that once the public understands a lot more, they will be sympathetic with difficult decisions that need to be taken. Remember, again, when telecoms came, remember SIM cards were 50K. If you remember, to get a line, you pay 200K. Today, they're begging with SIM cards. What happened? The regulator didn't try to pander to pressure. He just said, look, leave it. Market forces will determine these in the end. That's the point I'm making. But here, the moment you say tariffs are going up, labor strikes, that one, people are worried. And rightfully so, too, because for many people, I'm happy to pay for power if I see it. If I don't see it, why are you raising the tariffs? So at times you face chicken and egg situations. But if we all understand the dynamics of the section, then of the value chain, then we will be a lot more sympathetic to the changes that must necessarily occur. If you understand the importance of power in our economic circumstance, it holds the key to the diversification of the Nigerian economy. In fact, if you ask me, this power privatization should have preceded banking, telecoms, and all the others. Because many of them today spend so much of their money on self-generation. Just like me and you. I'm sure there's nobody in this room who doesn't have a generator. Why do you have to self-generate? And when you look at your holistic cost of giving yourselves power, you will know that if you allow market forces to determine tariffs, it's ultimately cheaper for you. Because you no longer have to burn diesel. You don't have to invest from time to time in the hardware called generator. And then what about the noise pollution? What about the health hazard? That's why programs like this I'm interested in. It's an enlightenment thing. Because once we all take ownership of this process, the change will come. And we've seen it in other sectors. One thing I will give to us Nigerians is that we're not afraid of hard work. We're not afraid of challenges. When there was so much noise about banking, who rose up to the challenge? It was not white men. It was Nigerians. Some of the most sophisticated bankers in the world today are Nigerian bankers. Telecoms, yes, I know some foreign telcos, MTN came. But go and look at their personnel today. It's almost 90% Nigerians. Look at aviation, all your pilots, all your whatever. So the point I'm driving at is that we need to be patient. You know, you see, you're dealing with a sector that had not been, nothing was not funded for nearly 40, 50 years. So it wasn't growing. These changes will occur, but you cannot, as they say, run without walking. It must be incremental. And if it's any good news to you today, in the last 6 to 9 months, we've been having what I call realignment talks. so that all these discordant tunes that have been coming from gas to Genco to, we're now beginning to align ourselves. And we're working on the auspices intervention of the central bank and the Minister of Power and the Minister of Finance. So for once, we're getting all the key players together, and we're not talking across purposes anymore. We're actually looking at how we can align this industry. Because as I said, if any one of them is weak, then you've just wasted your time. And all that.
And you mentioned now, it looks good, looks like there's some hope, like what I asked before. You talked about sympathy on the part of the public. These are changes that are definite and they take time. Prior to the privatization, from the days of NEPA, there were those laws that guided, kind of protected NEPA from the public. They couldn't be held accountable to a large extent. And today, those laws are still there. And because of those laws, there were a lot of acts of negligence. My question is, why do those laws subsist? Why are they still there?
Let me correct you, the laws are not there. You can sue now. Because it's all contract based today. If you go to the Electricity Power Sector Act, Regulatory Act, and if you look at the NEC website, it shows the rights of consumers for anything. So you just know your right and press for it. At Eco Disco, we even move ahead of time. Once we have there's an electrocution somewhere, we move ahead of time. Because we don't like noisy litigations. We settle. Because we know that if you sue, you will win. And all that. So, no. Let me just correct that. The laws are not there. It's a question of enlightenment. You're entitled to damages if you've been adversely affected by any action taken by any member of this value chain, especially the distribution companies, which is the face of the industry, and they are the ones who interact with consumers.
Now, you mentioned Eco Disco, so I'm just going to go there, where you are on the board. Eco Disco has been rated by NERC, Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission, in terms of provision of meters as the best in Nigeria, in the face of all these difficulties. However, Eco Disco seems, let me put it this way. How did you achieve this feat? It seems you strive so hard. How were you able to achieve this in the face of all this bad news?
Well, you see, achievement, generally speaking, is tied to the individual. You know, when you go into any venture, you set yourself personal goals. It's not no different from when you are running a business. We just happen to be investors and directors who have a clear idea of what we want. We see this as more than just making money. We see it as a mission to give our people light, which means anything that needs to be done to achieve that, we do. So we work in harmony. Let me give you an example. You know, most of the workers, we retain most of the, what you call the old NEPA workers. So which meant we had to deal with old habits that do not fit into modern times. If we were being bloody-minded about this, you could have just fired everybody, although you would have shot yourself in the foot and brought in new people. But we chose instead to work with what we saw on ground, try to transform those who would have agreed to transform, and then begin to put many of them. Because you see, human beings are who they are. They are victims of their own environment. So if you worked under the old NEPA, not going to work, not earning what you were being paid, could have been the norm. But today, we give clear goals, KPIs, to our district managers, to our heads, to everybody. So everything now is the email must drop. And so we're able to do assessments. We've improved on their conditions of service. We're paying them far more than the minimum wage asks us to do, and we keep reforming. We have bonus structures, and we're giving them, letting them take pride in the fact that, look, the history beckons on you. You are at a point where you want to take glory for the fact that you turned the power industry around. So that perhaps is one of the things that's driving us to achieve. And then there's an element of fortune as well. The heavy hitters in Nigeria, in Lagos. So we don't have as much problem to struggle with revenue generation as other discos who have to deal with much broader. Benin Disco, for example, covers 4 states. and they don't probably have up to 5% of heavy hitters. Whereas Lagos, even though we too have majority of majority of our consumers are spread all over the place. The 5 or 10% heavy hitters, major industries, banks, telcos, so they can pay and all that. So there's an element of good fortune as well. But the key in all of these things is that once we get the power industry going, it will unlock this economy.
You talked about patience on the part of Nigerians. I'm bringing you back there. And from your CV, you wear many hats. I'm going to add one more. I'm going to make you a fortune teller. From your vantage position, if you look into the crystal ball, where power sector, Nigerians,
yes.
What do you see?
I see a bright future, but let me just also warn you, I'm an incurable optimist. I have always believed in Nigeria, and as I've told you, I've had a good fortune. When I was young, in my 30s, I was involved with the banking transformation, telecoms, aviation, so I've seen it all. Now we're dealing with power. So, and in my 60s, I have seen these ones blossom, and I'm so proud today of these young men and women who are just going gaga with the latest in technology, and they're using it to influence the growth of Nigerians. So I don't see anything different with the power sector. Once we have sharpened all the rough edges, as we're doing today, the next trajectory is, you have nowhere else to go but up. You're already down anyway. The only way to go is up. So I'm invested in the future of this country and of the young ones too, because it will unlock such highly sophisticated jobs. And if you know the how do I put it now, the concurrent businesses that comes with when you unlock the power industry. Renewables. You're talking about your solar, you're talking about your hydro, you're talking about so many different things. And you can see the interface between power and telecoms. You will see how all these things meet with one another. Once we get to that trajectory, nobody can stop us in this country.
Unstoppable.
We are.
Let's go to West Titan, where you are chairman. There was a recent bid. I want to ask whether your company, West Titan, participated in that bid round for Marginal Fields.
I don't want to reveal trade secrets, but we are part of the process.
And how would you rate that process?
Good. Everything has a hiccup. You know, there were issues back and forth, but generally good. Because it will increase the stake of Nigerians in the oil and gas industry. You know, up until a few years ago, our total contribution, indigenous contribution to the overall Nigerian oil industry was less than 5%. But with policies like this, we are now at 25 and going. And you know the importance of us being increasingly involved in these things is that you will take control of your feedstock. The IOCs, you contracted with them, you gave them concessions, so you cannot go and tell them, please produce gas and give power to me. That was not their deal. They'll produce the gas and go take it away. But you can have that conversation with a Nigerian company. So with more and more indigenous companies in that industry, we can deal with this issue of gas to power. That is the benefit of having us take, and then you then take greater control of your economy. Look, where we're going to in the world, you're seeing now COVID, you're seeing collapse of oil prices and all that. If you do not control your means of production and the ability to add value, like Dangote is doing now when these refineries come in, once you control both, you're home and dry. What has been happening to us in the past is that we've run an economy in which people come here to extract what we have and take away. Go and add value and bring it back to and sell to us. So we are net importers. But the day we control both ends, like India has managed to do, China has managed to. There were countries like that before us. You will know that this country is truly destined for greatness. At times, it is forced on us, because at times when you want to reason with people that this is the way, they may not understand it. But thanks to COVID, in a manner of speaking, and thanks to collapse of oil prices, we're all thinking now. We're all thinking.
I'm taking you now to the Petroleum Industry Bill, which many say is long overdue. In fact, some people are tired of making comments because this should have passed according to them, whereas it is still in the chambers, in the legislative chambers. And people are still bringing up issues, including OICs and local communities, host communities. What is your take? The Petroleum Industry Bill, as presently written, what do you think the eventual outcome will be as presently written? Otherwise, what will be your input?
You see, again, interests determine legislation. So if I think I'm going to pass a legislation that will go against my interests, I'll resist it. And that's what's going on. Some people who are benefiting from the system the way it is and happen to be in power do not want to let go at all. So, and those who see ahead and say, look, this system will not do any good for us, let's fight it and bring about change, will also not let go. And that, I always take you back to where we started. Banking was like that. The banking reform didn't just happen. It was resisted. Telecoms was resisted. Remember NITEL, Labour, Corel, that, Libra. It will happen with the petroleum industry. It's true, it's coming 20 years late. And that's because you're assuming that 1 + 1 will give you 2, 2 + 2 will give you 4. You know, human affairs don't work like that. Whenever it comes, it will come. But we have reached boiling point now. And I said again, between COVID and collapse in oil prices, we're beginning to look seriously at the PIB. Because as I mentioned also when we started, what makes any business thrive is a legal and regulatory environment. The reason you're not having this sort of investments in the oil and gas industry today is that the legal and regulatory framework is a deterrent. So once you free that up, you let actors come in, people can put in money, they can take it out, then investments will. It's investments that drive development. So we need to have that done. My prediction, PIB will happen, even if it's going to happen in segments. For example, you know, there's a governance bill. Yeah, it will happen. There's a host community bill. That will happen because the host communities have a case. You cannot be extracting from our communities, despoiling the environment, wrecking us, and not find a way of compensating us. That will also happen. And, you know, the fiscal aspect of the bill, these things will all open up this economy. So for those who think that because they're in a vantage position, they can hold us to ransom, they should have another thing. This engine, this train has left the station. They should either join it or they will be left behind.
And from you, finally, is there any particular word you want to put out, a strong message to Nigerians? For me,
you see, Nigeria is at crossroads today. I mean, we see all the events that are going on around us. My take is that no nation attains true greatness without going through the sort of self-inquisition that is going on. You know, there are times, you know, God's ways are not our own ways. You know, if you left it to human beings, he doesn't want to suffer. He likes to get things on a platter of gold. But some of the greatest events that shaped the destiny of mankind have come from conflict. So at times, conflict makes us understand and respect ourselves better. So my take is that, yeah, we're at crossroads. Let's talk. Let's shout at each other. But in the end, let us not lose the lessons that these conflicts bring, so that by the time greatness comes with it, we'll make good use of it.
Thank you very much. I have been speaking with Mr. George Etomi, a legal luminary who is also making waves in everything he chooses to put his hand. He has the Midas touch. Very erudite speaker there, Mr. George Etomi. You definitely will agree with me on that. Among the things he said, that he is an incurable optimist. I think that is worth sharing. All of us should be incurable optimists. This is the country we'll call home, the biggest black nation on the face of the earth. There is hope for Nigeria. Join the optimism train. Drop your messages on our social media handles that you see right now across your screen. We look forward to hearing from you, to reading from you. Until next time, bye for now.